Have you ever felt like you are not far from Allah, yet your heart still feels unsettled? Like you are doing what you are supposed to do on the outside, but on the inside something feels incomplete, heavy, unresolved. This video is not for people looking for quick motivation or a temporary emotional boost. This is for those who are quietly fighting themselves, those who keep trying to stand back up, yet still feel a question lingering deep inside their chest. If you made it here, this is not random. This video will not comfort you. It will give you clarity, and clarity does not always feel good at first. If you are ready to face the truth, then let us begin. If you clicked on this video, there is a strong chance you have been carrying a question you do not say out loud. Not the question, am I special? And not, am I better than others? But this question, why does my life feel so heavy on the inside even when I am trying to do the right thing? You are not watching this because your life is falling apart on the outside. You are watching because something inside does not feel settled. You are doing enough to know what is right, but not enough to feel at peace, and that gap keeps getting louder. The confusing part is this: you do not feel far from Allah, yet you do not feel calm either. It feels like something keeps pulling you inward, forcing you to sit with thoughts most people try to drown out. And the more you try to ignore them, the heavier they become, until eventually you start questioning yourself. Before going any further, understand this clearly. If you are here for motivation, comfort, or a short emotional lift, this is not that. This is not a video you watch and feel better for 5 minutes. This is clarity. And clarity often hurts before it heals. If you are still here, it means you are ready. She keeps returning even when she is tired of herself. Here is something most people misunderstand. If Allah had truly abandoned you, you would not be struggling like this. People who are truly distant do not wrestle internally. They do not stop and question themselves. They do not feel a pullback. They simply move on. You do not. You get tired of yourself, tired of the same thoughts, tired of promising change and then realizing you are still human. Sometimes you do not even know what to say in dua anymore. Not because you do not believe, but because it feels like you have already said everything. And this is what matters most. Even when you are disappointed in yourself, your heart still turns back to Allah. Not confidently, not proudly, almost reluctantly. But you still return. People do not return to someone they believe has completely rejected them. They do not keep knocking on a door they believe is permanently closed. Allah himself says he loves those who constantly return to him, and the Prophet made it clear. Slipping is not the problem, giving up is. So maybe what you have been calling failure is actually refusal to disconnect. And maybe the reason this struggle keeps coming back is because your heart was never meant to settle far away. When Allah removes something, even when it hurts, this is where many people get confused, because things do not fall apart dramatically. They are taken away quietly. A connection that felt safe, a plan that finally made sense, a version of life you were emotionally leaning on. And it hurts not only because it is gone, but because you asked Allah for it. So the thought enters your mind: if Allah knows my heart, why would he do this? Here's the part rarely explained properly. Human hearts do not just love, they attach. And whatever the heart attaches to starts carrying fear, hope, and worth. That is why the Quran says something uncomfortable but honest. You may hate something while it is good for you, and love something while it is bad for you, and Allah knows while you do not. This verse is not meant to silence you. It is meant to explain timing. Because when you are emotionally attached, you cannot see clearly, you can only see loss. Allah does not remove things to punish attachment. He removes them when they begin to replace trust. That is also why the Prophet warned that the heart can become tied to things it was never meant to carry. Love is not wrong, but dependence reshapes the heart. So when something is taken from you, it does not automatically mean rejection. Sometimes it means this: your heart was leaning somewhere it was never designed to rest, and Allah intervened before that leaning turned into captivity. Have you ever felt like you're just going through the motions with your faith? Like you're praying, fasting, and doing all the right things, but it's more for show, for what others might think. I've been there. For the longest time, I was so caught up in looking like a good Muslim that I forgot what it meant to actually be one in my heart. I was performing for an audience, not connecting with Allah. But then something shifted. I got tired of the performance. I got tired of the emptiness that came with it. So I decided to be brutally honest with myself and with Allah. I started talking to him in my own words, not just reciting memorized lines. I told him about my struggles, my doubts, my fears, and my hopes. It was messy and it was raw, but for the first time, it was real. And you know what? That's when everything changed. The moment I stopped performing and started being honest, I felt a connection I had never experienced before. It was no longer about an image, it was about a relationship. A real, personal relationship with the one who created me. If you're feeling distant, maybe it's time to drop the act too. Be honest, be vulnerable, and just talk to him. You might be surprised by the peace you find. You start becoming careful. Careful about what you show, who you impress, and what you share. People might look at this and call it insecurity, or say you're being too strict or that you've changed. But the Prophet, peace be upon him, gave us a clear anchor. Haya is part of Iman. That's not a personality trait. It's a protective filter in the heart. And when that filter is alive and working, you just don't feel comfortable turning yourself into a product for public consumption, even when society treats it as completely normal. In a world that is so loud and demanding, that kind of restraint isn't weakness, it's guidance. Then one day, you notice something else with crystal clarity. You realize you haven't just been kind. You've been strategic. You've been editing yourself to avoid rejection in difficult conversations. You downplay what really matters to you in family settings just to keep the peace. You stay quiet to avoid being labeled as difficult or problematic. You put on a smile, but inside, you feel small and diminished. And then you just get tired. Not tired of people, but tired of living like their approval is the very oxygen you breathe. Islam doesn't teach us to be harsh. A smile is still a form of charity. Good character is still paramount. But you stop paying for acceptance with disobedience to Allah, with weak boundaries, or with self-betrayal. This is exactly what the Prophet, peace be upon him, warned about. He said, if you seek people's pleasure by displeasing Allah, you will be handed over to people. And people are never satisfied. So, you learn to keep your adab, your good manners, but you also learn to keep your spine. You stand firm in your values. This next part is something no one really prepares you for. At some point in your journey, you realize that certain things are simply not happening for you. It's not because you didn't try hard enough, and it's not because you were careless. The doors are just closed. Maybe it's a certain type of relationship, a version of marriage you imagined, or a lifestyle you could have had if you had just compromised your principles a little more. Earlier in life, you might have argued with Allah about it. You would have pushed harder, lowered your standards, or justified what you knew in your heart wasn't right. But something changes. You still feel the sting of disappointment. You're only human. But you stop fighting with Allah for alternatives that would cost you your iman or your self-respect. That's not weakness, it's alignment. The Quran says Allah guides the hearts of those who believe. And guidance here doesn't always mean getting clear answers. It means your heart stops pulling you toward what was never written for you in the first place. So you stop chasing every single open door. You stop panicking when something comes to an end. You stop trying to force what keeps resisting. And slowly, without any grand announcement, your life becomes quieter, but so much cleaner. This isn't resignation. It's trust finally settling into your bones. People who aren't being guided in this specific way don't experience closed doors like this. They just keep forcing them. Now, this message was never meant to convince you that you are special. Being chosen by Allah isn't a compliment. It's a profound responsibility. It doesn't always show up as constant peace, a perfect life, or feeling spiritually elevated all the time. Most of the time, it shows up as restraint. It shows up as delay, as redirection right when you are ready to move forward. It shows up as a heart that just doesn't fully settle where it was never meant to stay. It shows up as doors that don't open, even when you knock on them correctly. It shows up as an inner line that you simply refuse to cross, even when crossing it would have made your life so much easier. This doesn't mean others are rejected. And it definitely doesn't mean your path is harder because you're somehow better. It simply means your heart is being handled differently. It's being protected. So if you've been quietly wondering whether your struggles are pointless or your delays mean you redoing something wrong, please understand this. Allah does not choose people to confuse them. He chooses them to protect them, even when that protection doesn't feel gentle at first. And if you're still listening after all of this, it's likely because something deep inside you already knew. If this reached you at a moment you needed it, just leave a quiet prayer in your heart. Ya Allah, guide my heart and steady my steps. You never know who might be saying Ameen right there with you. Until then, walk gently, trust deeply, and do not rush what Allah is so carefully shaping. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.